It's one of those things where it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This one concerns a gentleman who basically ended up being defrauded out of $15,000, goes to the bank, it's TD Bank in this particular case, and the bank says, sorry, we're not giving you your money back. We don't believe your account was hacked. So what's going on? Claudiu Popa is a privacy and cybersecurity expert on this story. Sir, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
What happened here exactly? A guy clearly, I mean, it seemed to me, and I read the story, I think it was 10 different withdrawals from his account of $1,500, 10 times, 15 grand at the end. Did the bank provide no rationale or reason for why they would not give him his money back?
That's broadly correct. I think what's different here from things that we've seen before, and certainly of cyber heists and cyber fraud that we've heard about on the radio, is that this type of attack has actually converted the individual's funds into debt. In other words, the criminal took over their account, the victim's account, and paid the criminal's account from a credit line account. So, in other words, this was taking advantage of a loan mechanism, and now the victim is on the hook for those $1,500 payments that were made in rapid succession to a fraudulent account. And for what it's worth, it did sound like the bank was quite surprised to see this type of activity, because normally they monitor checking accounts and saving accounts, but not so much credit line accounts. And that is a new spin on an old trick.
Which sound to me like someone found a new loophole here, and the bank's not willing to admit that, they weren't on top of this. Am I correct in that?
That seems to be the case. The ombudsman looked into it. They agreed that it was fraudulent. No one is obviously so brazen as to say that the victim was in cahoots with the criminals or anything like that. Obviously, everyone is saying that the account was taken over somehow, perhaps using malware, perhaps some other means of intercepting the passwords. But the key point here is that the user was impersonated by a criminal. And under the current regime, banks are effectively saying, hey, if anyone other than you has access to your account, that's because you failed to adequately protect it, so you're on the hook for the money that you lost.
You failed to adequately protect it? How would that work exactly?
Well, so that's in the terms of service that most people don't read when they open a bank account. Banks typically say, we are doing our best to secure our platform. We have controls in place. We have security. We have bank-level security even, obviously. But once you are assigned an account on our platform, you are responsible for protecting access to that account. And if you're telling us that somebody went into that account and sent out money from your account, well, that's on you, and that's the current regime here in Canada.
Okay, he's not the only person to have this happen to him. It sounds to me like the bank is just looking for a way out, and for them to simply say to him, "I'm sorry, it's your fault, not ours." Is this case closed?
It sounds like the bank is trying hard to close it. The exposure is likely making a difference. Again, by and large, most people's accounts, once they are accessed inappropriately, the money is simply transferred out, which counts as a cyber heist. In this particular case, the person's money is transformed into debt, and so that debt is now owed by the victim to the bank. So it's an interesting spin on this, and I'm sure that we're only going to see more of it in the future.
All right. So I guess my other question here would simply be, going forward, if the bank is not willing to acknowledge that he had been hacked, what sort of proof would he have to come up to? I mean, 15 grand is not $100. This is a significant portion of money for him, from what I understand. Does he have a case? Is there a case now being brought forward to simply say it's not enough to tell me you're not going to cover the amount stolen without providing any proof?
I mean, as an individual, anyone has the ability to bring a lawsuit to bear. But as far as the bank is concerned and their investigation, it sounds to me like they've investigated as far as they could. And it's only as a last resort that the victim took the case to the media, and it's receiving fairly broad coverage. And one of the reasons it's receiving broad coverage is that although this is being treated as normal here in Canada to blame the victim by and large, in the UK there's new legislation that shows that in effect this same situation might have resulted in the individual being simply reimbursed within 4 or 5 days by the bank, because over there the pressure is on the financial institution to do their due diligence and pay very close attention at the risk of a transfer being fraudulent. And in this case, of course, the TD Bank has said that the transfer was clearly going to a crypto account, which to me sounds suspicious. So why they didn't act to stop it, we don't know.
But did I read as well that some of the money here was actually used to pay bills of some kind, like actual bills? Do you know? Yes.
Yeah, it appears to have been. And some of those payments, we should be aware, are typically test payments. So in some cases, they are useful bill payments, and of course, the bank should be following up on those. In other cases, there are small payments that go to legitimate organizations in order to see if the process is actually working or to fool those who might be watching activity on that account. So it's every case is somewhat different, but they are aware, criminals are aware of the fact that banks are monitoring these things and could put a stop to these transactions if they thought they were risky enough. The odd thing is that the bank did not think it was risky enough to intervene in this case.
What's
that's why.
What's the advice to consumers here? I mean, you know, if you're obviously you're a client of a bank, everyone's got a bank. What should you be doing here to avoid having this happen to you?
One of the key things that we see as a trend is that many consumers have a number of accounts linked to their banking interface, so they can see their savings, obviously their checking accounts, their kids' RESPs, their investment accounts, and of course their credit accounts. We all know that we should be strictly monitoring and scrutinizing those cash accounts. But many of us have never looked at our credit line accounts simply because in some cases we don't use them. So now we are being forced to routinely go through those accounts and check those statements and ensure that there's no unauthorized activity that might surprise us if we missed it. So that's a new habit that we suddenly have to develop if we have access to that to those accounts in our banking interface. But of course, reporting unauthorized activity as soon as humanly possible remains the first priority of every banking customer.
All right, Mr. Popa, I want to thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio, hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll. I'm coming to get you! One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all. Bryan Adams Radio. I'm coming back to you. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Everybody